Good morning, everybody. Matt Moda here to give you my favorite NBA player prop picks for tonight. We have a massive NBA betting slate tonight. We're talking Monday, November 4th, and I'm going to have seven. That's right, I have seven NBA player prop picks for you guys to lock in for tonight. Now, one thing that I do want to be clear, I am not playing a huge card of NBA player prop picks tonight just because there are a lot of games. I actually really like the angle on all seven of the plays that we have. So I didn't want to not take anything that I liked because I was scared of having a bigger card. So that's what we're doing tonight. Huge slate of games, huge card of NBA player prop picks as well. 4 of the 7 are plus money bangers. So let's hope we can have a great night. Real quick, before we get into it, just want to do a recap on the rough season that we have had. I'm not going to hide behind it, not going to deny it. It has not been a great season so far on these NBA player prop picks. We've gotten hooked just across the board on a lot of plays, which means that the read has been right. It just hasn't gone our way. We've also gotten some reads wrong. Not going to pretend that it's only bad luck, but it's been a lot of bad luck. So hopefully that turns around tonight. Last year, with the same strategies, we had an amazing season, up over 118 units of profit. So I'm confident in the strategy and what we're doing. It just hasn't worked out so far, but I'm confident that it will. And let's get into it with a huge slate of games, a huge number of picks for tonight. Going to go through it as quickly as I can. Number one, the first of our 2 unders for tonight. OG Anunoby under 14.5 points, minus 125 odds at FanDuel. So for this one, what we're doing with this OG Anunoby under, we're both fading recent results, and we are also fading OG Anunoby in a tough matchup against the Rockets, who just do not give up any points the ways in which that OG Anunoby scores. Now, it's a number that Anunoby has gone over in 2 of his last 3 games. Of course, he missed it in the first 2 games, and last game in which he went over, he had somewhat of an outlier shooting performance. That was against the Pistons. You know, he had his highest usage rate of the season. He also attempted the most shots in a game this season as well. So that type of stuff is just naturally going to come down just from like a kind of things evening out over the course of the season type of thing. And especially that is going to come down, the usage rate and those field goal attempts against a Rockets defense that just does not give away any spot up opportunities. You know, all NBA defenses, the defenses are going to average giving up like 110, probably more points per game. So all defenses have to decide how they want to give up points. And for the Rockets specifically, they have decided that they're just not going to be beat by spot up, catch and shoot 3-point players. Instead, they're going to get beat off the dribble, off of pull-ups. So this could be an over for a Jalen Brunson as well. I'm just more confident in the under for Anunoby. So with that thought in mind, the Rockets have allowed the second fewest points per game to spot up shooters, while also allowing the fewest field goal attempts to spot up shooters in the entire NBA. So the second fewest points on literally the fewest field goal attempts. On a related note, because these things are directly correlated, they've allowed the fewest corner 3-point attempts and the fewest catch and shoot field goal attempts in the NBA as well. That's how OG scores. He scores from the corner. He scores from being a spot-up shooter. You know, he's an athletic player. He's a great defender, but he doesn't really have any offensive skill set, specifically off the bounce. You know, he hasn't really been able to develop that part of his game. And over 50% of his points come from being a spot-up shooter. He takes just about 4 catch-and-shoot 3-pointers per game. Those are just not going to be available in this matchup. So you take 3 to 6 points away from OG Anunoby on an over-under that's only 14.5, and you kind of start to get why this under is a play. Another reason why, and this is less important, but still important, OG scores over 30% of his points in transition, so running the floor, getting out in a fast break. The Rockets allow the second fewest fast break points in the entire NBA. There's just not a lot of ways in which OG can score in this matchup, which is why I think this under is a play. Even at the minus 125 odds, I'm cool drinking the juice on that bad boy. That's play number 1. Play number 2, we're taking Kyrie Irving under 4.5 assists, plus 122 odds at FanDuel. So this is our second and final under play of the slate. You know, point guard assist unders, it was a system play against the Pacers last year. And now I haven't played it yet this year because I wanted to make sure that the Pacers are going to play a similar style of defense. I wanted enough data to support last year's data still being relevant. Luckily, we have that data. So that's why we're rocking with the under assists for Kyrie tonight. And I will admit, Kyrie's been good as a playmaker to begin the season. He's gone over this number in 4 of 6 games. But I think that's kind of going to normalize over the course of the season. And we're also fading his playmaking specifically in this matchup. The way the Pacers play defense is to basically never send help when players are driving to the basket. So like the roll man on a pick and roll just stays with the big man. The wings on the outside are just sticking to the shooters. So players that drive to the basket either via ISO or pick and roll, they can score a ton of points against the Pacers, but that also means that they're not getting any assists against the Pacers either. This year, the Pacers have allowed the most points per game via isolation, the 4th most points per game to pick and roll ball handlers. It was the same thing last year. Now, if a player is scoring while driving to the hoop, they're generally not assisting. You can't have an assist on a basket that you score. Even if you throw it off the rim or the backboard and dunk it, that's not an assist, which it should be, but that's a different conversation. So on the flip side of that, the Pacers have allowed the 3rd fewest assists per game to point guards. Last year, they allowed the fewest assists per game to point guards. So again, it's not just this year. It's not just last year. It's both. And in this exact matchup last year against the Pacers, Kyrie Irving went under in both games. He had 2 assists in one game and 3 assists in the other. And more importantly, on 4 and on 9 potential assists. Even that 9 number would make me a little bit nervous. But you're telling me he'd have to convert over 50% of his potential assist opportunities to cash this over. I think that's great. This year, according to props.cash, the Pacers are the 6th worst matchup specifically for point guard assist props. Last year, they were the worst matchup. Very confident that Kyrie Irving goes under his assist prop tonight. You want to take his points over? I'm cool with that. I think that's a good look. I'm just more confident in the under on his assists. Next up, now we're getting to some overs. We're taking Terry Rozier over 15.5 points. This is best offered at -115 odds at bet365. Normally, I would pump this number up for Rozier. I would find a way to take it for plus money. But, I scanned the sports books, at least at the time of this recording. There really wasn't any value on an over 16.5, on an over 17.5, even at the 20 plus number. So I'm cool with taking the 15.5 and again, drinking the juice at the -115 odds. Now, I will admit, generally betting on players in Heat games in general, honestly, can be kind of a crapshoot because they have a slower pace. We never really know whose night it's going to be for the Heat. But what I like about Terry Rozier is he's just been very good this year. So we're backing a player who's been good, but more importantly, he's getting consistent minutes and he has a consistent role as well. He's played between 31 and 34 minutes in every single game for the Heat, and he's taken between 12 and 16 field goal attempts in every single game as well. Even if the floor is 12 field goal attempts, for someone that only needs to score 16 points, that's pretty good. And this is a number that Rozier has admittedly gone over in 4 of 5 games, but he did just miss it last game, and he's coming off of his worst shooting performance of the season as well. He scored 12 points. That was while going 4 of 15 from the field. Now, the reason why we're having such a poor start to the year is because we've been burned by guys we're betting that take the attempts but have horrible shooting numbers. Guys we're betting on going 4 of 16 from the field, stuff like that. Eventually, that's going to normalize. And eventually, it's also especially going to normalize for Terry Rozier specifically. This is a number that he's hit in 4 or 5 games. That's despite the fact that he's mostly shot horribly this season. He scored 16 or more points in games in which he went 5 of 15 from the field, 7 of 16 from the field, 5 of 14 from the field. You just normalize those shooting splits a little bit. He's getting us to 16 points with ease. And I haven't even mentioned this yet, the best part, the reason why we are on this matchup is because it's a great matchup for Terry Rozier against a Kings defense that's basically the opposite of everything I said about the Rockets. If you remember that, the Rockets, they don't allow anything to spot up shooters. The Kings are the exact opposite. They are literally the worst defense in the entire NBA when guarding spot up shooters. They have allowed, quite literally, the most points per game to spot up shooters in the NBA. Terry Rozier scores 60% of his points as a spot up shooter, and he actually averages the most points per game in the NBA of all players via the spot up. Match made in heaven for Terry Rozier to score a bunch of points. Let's hope he comes through cashing out. This is our 3rd pick of the video. Next up, we are taking Rudy Gobert over 24.5 points plus rebounds. This is at -110 odds at ESPN Bet. Another matchup play here, a great matchup for Rudy Gobert against a horrible Hornets defense that has not been able to keep the center position from scoring. They also haven't been able to keep the center position from racking up a ton of rebounds against them as well, which is why we're taking both points and rebounds for Rudy Gobert. You know, it's funny, looking at the season so far for Gobert, he's hit this quite literally in every other game. On, off, on, off, on, off. He missed it last game, which would make him due to hit the over in this game. Now, obviously, to be clear, betting is not that simple. I'm more so just kind of noting how funny it is that it's kind of shaken out that way. The real reason why we are on this play for Gobert, it's a matchup play, as I mentioned, against the Hornets for both points and rebounds. Now, to start with the points, Gobert. How does he score points? Getting to the line via putback and as they pick and roll man. That's really all he does. The Hornets have allowed the second most points per game to pick and roll man. They foul at the fourth highest rate in the NFL. And just look at similar players to Gobert in matchups like this. Jakob Poeltl scored 20 points against the Hornets. Then you want to look at rebounds. You want to target Gobert when he's playing a team that won't pull him away from the paint and make him guard space. That's why he's a terrible matchup for either stretch bigs or teams like the Mavericks who are just going to run a pick and roll and try and either get him to switch or hedge. And they just kind of play, the Timberwolves do, a different defense against the Mavericks. But when he plays teams, again, that does not have a stretch big and that shoots a ton close to the basket, Gobert is going to collect a bunch of rebounds against those teams. The 3 games that Gobert has had 11 or more rebounds against, the 4 games that Rudy Gobert has had 11 or more rebounds against, Lakers, Raptors, Kings, and Nuggets. Of all those teams, the stretchiest big is Anthony Davis, who has, he's been able to work on his jumper a little bit, but no one would call him a stretch big at this point. He still shoots closer to the basket. And generally, all those centers stay close to the rim. And Jakob Poeltl in this matchup against the Hornets, 16 rebounds. Alperen Şengün in this matchup against the Hornets, 18 rebounds. Both of them smoked their over. Let's hope Gobert is capable of doing that as our 4th pick of the evening. Play number 5, and now we're getting to some plus money banger overs. Dennis Schroder over 8.5 assists, plus 125 odds at ESPN Bet. Now, Schroder has been awesome this season. The public is kind of starting to pick up on that. But the reason why we are on him tonight, no Ben Simmons. He's not going to play the second half of a back-to-back. Ben Simmons played last night. That means Dennis Schroder is going to completely run the offense for the Nets. Now, you look at the season, Schroder's only hit this in 1 game this year. He's gotten to 7 assists in 2 games and 8 in another game. So the games in which he's gone under, 3 of them he's been relatively close. And then he has a crazy ceiling game where he had 14 assists. And you look at the season, really it's night and day difference when he's on the floor without Ben Simmons versus when he's on the floor with Ben Simmons. He averages over 8.5 more assists per 36 minutes when he is playing, when Ben Simmons is off the floor. That's how dramatic the difference is. 8.5 more assists per 36. Per 36 minutes, Dennis Schroder averages 10.1 assists per game when Ben Simmons is off the floor. Now, in terms of minutes played, he's not going to quite get to the 36 number, but he's going to get close. He's averages just under 35 minutes per game, which if just those numbers hold, that 35 minutes per game average would put him between 9 and 10 assists per game. Now, for context, when he shares the floor with Ben Simmons, he averages only 1.6 assists per 36 minutes. They've been on the floor for 67 minutes together. In that time, Schroder has 3 assists. Ben Simmons has 18. So yeah, it's a night and day difference. I mean, when you're playing with Ben Simmons, he's not really going to finish anything you pass to him. So not only does it take away just a player that you can get an assist from that player scoring, it also means that Ben Simmons himself is taking away offense from Dennis Schroder. So it's a dramatic difference on or off the floor for Dennis Schroder and Ben Simmons. And it's also a good matchup against the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are a defense. They're aggressive in sending help. They have really good shot blockers, which means that those centers, Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr., when teams running a pick and roll, they're going to try and block the ball handler, leaving the roll man open. That leads a lot of points to the roll man. And they're aggressive off of shooters on the wings and on the corners and above the break, which leads to a lot of catch and shoot and spot up opportunities as well. All 3 of those types of baskets are assisted. Catch and shoot, spot up, or the roll man scoring is from an assist. So you keep that in mind. The Grizzlies are allowing the 6th most field goal attempts per game to the pick and roll man, the 6th most points per game to spot up shooters, and literally the most catch and shoot field goal attempts against them as well. All 3 of those perfect for a lead guard like Dennis Schroder to rack up a ton of assists. He had 8 assists in this matchup against the Grizzlies earlier this year. Let's just hope he can get to 9 tonight. And kind of a related play, Cam Johnson 3-pointers is one that I did like in this matchup as well. Again, I was more confident in the Schroder assists, but if you want an honorable mention, it would be the Cam Johnson 3-pointers in this matchup. Play number 6, we're almost done. Play number 6, Trey Young, 30 plus points, plus 130 odds at FanDuel. Another system play here. The system is high usage point guards who are adept at running the pick and roll and can pull up from either 3-point range or the mid range. Take those players' point props against the Celtics. The good news is I basically just described the way in which Trey Young scores and the way in which Trey Young can attack a defense. On the season, the Celtics have allowed the 3rd most made pull-up 3-pointers, the 4th most made pull-ups in general, 6th most points per game to pick and roll ball handlers, 5th most points per possession to pick and roll ball handlers. And just look at what guards have done to the Celtics this year. Deuce McBride, 22 points in about 24 minutes. His over-under was 9.5. Damian Lillard scored 33 points. And then in back-to-back games against the Hornets, LaMelo Ball put up 31 and 36 points. Trey Mann scored 23 against the Celtics. It's just by design of how the Celtics play defense. I mentioned earlier, all NBA teams have to decide how in which they want to give up points. For the Celtics, they're cool getting beat by high usage guards that can pull up because they're generally, high percentage shots. They run pick and roll against the Celtics. The Celtics drop the big man, pull up opportunities. Trey Young has run the 2nd most pick and roll per game in the NBA, takes the 4th most pull up field goal attempts in the NBA as well. Now, looking at the matchup historically between Trey Young and the Celtics, Trey Young missed this in his most recent game against the Celtics. He only scored 20 points. He got to 30 in 5 straight games prior to that. So I'll take the 5 out of 6, especially missing it last game. Confident Trey Young has a good game tonight. That's play number 6. Now we're going play number 7, our 7th and final pick for this video. People who know me probably guessed it. Jakob Poeltl, 12 plus rebounds, plus 130 odds at DraftKings. Another system play here. Center rebound props against the Nuggets. We've been on this system for 2 games now. It's cashed out both times. On the season, the Nuggets are allowing the 2nd most rebounds per game to centers, and they've been smoked, just annihilated by center rebound props. Legitimately, the Nuggets have played 6 games. All 6 starting centers against the Nuggets have cashed their rebound prop over. 5 of them got to 12 rebounds as well. Chet Holmgren, 14 rebounds, his over-under was 8.5. Zubac, 15 rebounds, his over-under was 10.5. Jakob Poeltl in this exact matchup, the same player we are taking tonight, had 19 rebounds against the Nuggets. Nick Claxton had 12. Rudy Gobert had 14. Walker Kessler had 14. All 6 cashed their over. All 6 got to 12 plus rebounds as well. I might have misspoke earlier. 6 of them, all 6 have gotten to 12 plus rebounds as well. It's all because of the shot selection for the Nuggets. They shoot close to the rim, which leads a ton of rebound opportunities to centers. The Nuggets have taken the 2nd most shots within 5 feet from the basket. That's why centers have been able to crush their rebound prop against the Nuggets. Jakob Poeltl, as I mentioned, 19 against the Nuggets in this exact matchup on 26 rebound opportunities. The Raptors are still banged up. They don't have their backup center. Poeltl is going to play primarily. He's going to play the most minutes as the center tonight. Hopefully he gets the 12 plus rebounds, cashing out this plus money banger. And that's all we got. I appreciate everybody for watching. I know this has been a long video, so I'm just going to end it here. Just give me a like, comment, and subscribe. All that stuff is very, very helpful to me. Appreciate everybody for watching, and have a good one.